Hello guys, welcome back to Archive Ryzen. In this video, I'm gonna talk about the best operative in standard banner for you to choose in case you are a beginner player who looking for a strong operative, or you are an intermediate players or veteran players who want to build your operative manifestation. So for beginner players, I will explain it based on the operative DPS and the operative usability. While for intermediate or veteran players, I will explain it based on the operative manifestation priority. So based on the operative DPS, you can see that Yao Winter Salties can deal the highest single magazine DPS in her ultimate stat between all of them. While for Yao Winter Salties sustain DPS, you can ignore that number because that number is purely from her normal shot. That didn't include her standard skill buff because using her standard skill means reloading her gun, so her sustain DPS can't be calculated if she using her standard skill. That number is only for you to see what happens if you run out of her standard skill charge and only able to use her normal shot. You can see that her DPS will become quite low, while for the second highest DPS is Rifle Wild Hunt, and for the third highest DPS is Fny Cornet, and for the fourth highest DPS is Maran Swift. While for Fritihas, you can't use that number to compare between all of them because that number is only from her normal shot and her standard skill, assuming that we use her as an active operative. Meanwhile, Fritihas' main power is on her ultimate skill. So if we use her as an main DPS or active operative, she can't produce a lot of damage from her normal shot and her standard skill because all of her firepower are focused on her ultimate skill. So from here you can see that if you want to use Fritihas, it's best for Fritihas to team up with any main DPS that have a high sustain DPS but also have a useless ultimate skill. For example, Maran Swift, Rifle Wild Hunt, or Fny Cornet, because their ultimate skill is multi-target focus skill, while for Fritihas is single target focus skill. So if you're fighting against boss, it is better to spend your ultimate energy on Fritihas than use it for operative that have AoE ultimate skill. But keep in mind, all of this number is only based on calculation, but in reality, you can't really expect much from this calculation because we know that every operative have a different fire rate, different skill, different optimal weapon rank, different ricochet rate, or sometimes you need to chase around the enemy or even dodge the enemy attack. That every your action can affect the sustain DPS your operative can deal. So rather than choose your operative based on their DPS only, I'm gonna recommend you the suitable operative for beginner players based on their overall ability. The first one that I highly recommended for beginner players is Fny Cornet. Even though Fny Cornet sustain DPS is lower than Rifle Wild Hunt, but because she is a shotgunner, she have a low ricochet rate, can destroy destroyable part more easier, and also she is very easy to use. Because all you need is to approaching the enemy as close as possible, then start smashing the enemy face with your shotgun as much as possible. And also she didn't have trouble when dealing with multi-enemy or mobs, because when you are getting cornered by mobs, all you need is to touch the grass in order to increase her defense and also paralyzing every nearby enemy with her ultimate skill. And after that, her ultimate will keep emit shockwave that will interrupt any nearby small enemy, so the nearby enemy won't be able to attack you. And also she have a very good support skill that can increase full squad fire rate for 10 seconds, so you can even use it on herself and combine it with her standard skill. So Fny Cornet will have a very high fire rate for a certain time. And for the second most recommended operative is Yao Winter Salties because she have the highest DPS among them all, so she is a very suitable operative if you want to defeat any boss. But keep in mind that she have a low fire rate because her habit to reload her gun so many times every time you use her standard skill, and also especially when she in her ultimate state, that her every shot needs charging time. That can decrease her fire rate a lot, so she can't deal with multi-enemy. And also because of that, if you want to fight a certain boss that have a high mobility or likely to approach you in order to kiss you in the face, you will need to maintain a safe distance a lot in order to shoot at the enemy without getting interrupted or getting attacked by the enemy. And for my third recommended operative is Level White Han because she's quite easy to use and she can deal a high DPS, but her downside is she's a submachine gun user that have a very high ricochet rate and require targeting the enemy weak spot in order to reduce the ricochet rate and also in order to maximize recharging her standard skill. But the way she can deal with single or multi-enemy without problem because most of her skill are AoE skill and her standard skill are very convenient to use. The way her standard skill can auto-targeting the enemies by itself, that's why I put her on the third place in my most recommended operative. Also the way her support skill can deal damage over time, that means her support skill can also fully trigger the support logistic squad skill, like Twilight Squad or Amarna Squad, where in order to fully trigger their skill, require the continuous damage from the support skill. Which means, besides you can build her as a main DPS, and in certain conditions, like you don't need her as a main DPS, you can also build her as a support operative, in order to buff your main DPS even further. Well, for the fourth recommended operative is Maran Swift. Even though Maran Swift is a sniper operative that can only deal decent damage, but the way she can dodge the enemy attack while attacking the enemy, the way she can shoot at the enemy weak spot without aiming because she has the aimbot ability in her skill, and also even though she uses bolt action sniper but she can ignore the bolt action animation or mechanism, she can keep dealing a constant DPS than Yao Winter Salties. So the differentiate between Maran Swift and Yao Winter Salties is the damage and the operative mobility. Yao Winter Salties can deal high amount of damage, but she will need to do more useless action like dodge the enemy attack, take a safe distance between her and the enemy, and also constantly required to aim at the enemy. While for Maran Swift is the opposite of Yao. She didn't do much useless defensive action that can reduce your sustained DPS, so she can easily maintaining her sustained DPS on the high side by continuously attacking the enemy while dodging and shooting without aiming. And also she is a very easy to use even though she is a sniper user because she have aimbot system. All you need to aim shot or aim down strike shot at the enemy weak spot one time, and after that you can continuously shooting at the same spot by keep using her standard skill and normal shot until you run out of bullet. And also the good news about Maran Swift is that nowadays we have Amarna Squad, the most powerful support logistic squad that can increase the active operative ballistic damage and attack by a certain percent, so it can very useful on Maran Swift that can buff both of her skill damage and her shooting damage. And the last one is Frithia Haas. The truth is, it's not really recommended for beginner players to get Frithia Haas because Frithia Haas is a support operative that her main power is on her ultimate skill because she is unusable as an active operative due to her standard skill have a very long cooldown and also she is very uneasy to use. When you start spraying her ultimate skill, it indeed feels really good. But sometimes if you are unlucky, you need to embrace all of the enemy attack without a single miss, and that will feel even better. So if you want to use Frithia Haas ultimate skill more peacefully, you will also need to build Shielder operative like Iris or looking for the most perfect timing to use her ultimate. But what about their build ability? Which one is the most easy to build for beginner players? So the most easy to build operative is also Fny Cornet because all you need is to reach her Manifestation 1, which is very reachable even for free-to-play players. And for her weapons, all you need is to give her the Discordance shotgun and she is good to go. Even until today, my Fny Cornet is still using Discordance as her main weapons. Yeah, of course, the main reason is I haven't got her signature weapon. While for the second operative is Level White Han. All she needs is Manifestation 1 also. After you reach her Manifestation 1, all you need is to give her a Frost Elemental weapon in order to trigger her Manifestation 1 skill. But the sad part is, currently there is no Frost Elemental submachine gun for free-to-play players. That's why she really needs her signature weapon, the one and only powerful Frost Elemental submachine gun weapon. That's what makes her signature weapon dependent operative. But if you already have Level White Han but can't afford to get her signature weapons, all you need is to give her the 3-star weapon, Safety Line that can deal Frost Elemental damage, because even only by using this tier 5 Safety Line, And with the help of Acacia Kaguya with free-to-play weapons, you can even defeat a difficulty 5 boss within time limit in the neural simulation. Well, of course it will not produce a high score for you, but at least you can claim the Digicase from the achievement after you completing the difficulty. And for the next one is Maran Swift. Maran Swift is also a very easy to build operative if you haven't reached her Manifestation 3. Her Manifestation 1 is necessary to achieve, while for her Manifestation 2 is her breakpoint, because her Manifestation 2 can boost up her damage a lot. Her recommended free-to-play weapon is Sweet Soul, but Sweet Soul can't make her deal a solid damage, so you will need to shoot a lot if you use Sweet Soul on her. Instead of using Sweet Soul on her, you can use Wetland Park or Mark of Mesmer, so she can deal more solid damage because both of these weapons have a high crit damage and also can increase her crit damage amplifier. But keep in mind, you can only use both of these weapons as a substitute for her if your Maran haven't reached Manifestation 3, because on her Manifestation 3, she will require a kinetic elemental weapons, for example Sweet Soul or Horn of the Orca. While for the fourth one is Yao Winter Salties. Yao Winter Salties are quite hard to build because both of her standard skill and ultimate skill neuronic upgrade require her to use a thermal damage weapon in order to trigger the neural skill. So if you didn't have Space Cowboy, then you will need to use a free-to-play thermal damage sniper weapon Sight of Record that have a fast fire rate, more ammo capacity, but can't deal a solid damage. But the downside about using the semi-auto sniper on Yao Winter Salties is her habit to reload her gun a lot every time she uses her standard skill can make that fast fire rate from the semi-auto sniper ability become useless. So your sustained DPS will drop a lot if you try to use this Sight of Record for her. Instead of using Sight of Record, you can use Wetland Park or Mark of Mesmer, so Yao can deal more solid damage, but the downside from using this gun is this gun cannot trigger the standard skill and ultimate skill neural upgrade because both of this gun is not a thermal weapon, but at least both of this gun can produce more damage than the Sight of Record. So if you want to fully bring out all of her ability, then you will really need to use her signature weapon that is a thermal damage weapon and also can deal a solid damage each shot. So that makes her a weapon dependent operative. For Manifestation, Manifestation 1 is really necessary for her, while Manifestation 2 is a huge breakpoint for her. Because as we know that Manifestation 1 and 2 are very reachable even for free-to-play players. While for Frithia Haas, she is very difficult to build because first, she will need a thermal weapon, and currently there is only 2 thermal assault rifles such as Sword Cake and her own signature weapon Lava Bones. Using Sword Cake on her are very useful because you can buff your active operative attack every time you use Frithia's support skill, but it can't make Frithia's ultimate skill to deal more damage, while for Lava Bones, it can make Frithia's ultimate skill to deal more solid damage. While for her Manifestation, Manifestation 1 is very necessary, and she will need to go up to Manifestation 4 in order to pump up her ultimate skill damage. I think that's all about the build ability between 5 of these operative. Now I'm gonna explain about the Manifestation priority between each of these operative. So in here, you can see that if the height is in orange color, the Manifestation priority is very high. That can very game changer for the operative. So for Fny Cornet, her Manifestation 1 is very crucial for her because her standard skill will no longer have duration. Instead, it will be fully depend on the mercy point availability. So that means as long as you still have mercy point, your standard skill will not end it, and you can end it by yourself by pressing the standard skill button again. While for her Manifestation 2 is quite necessary because it can boost up your mercy point accumulation from each shot, so you can accumulate your mercy point as high as possible until it's reached its limit. Because the more mercy point you have, the more faster your fire rate can be. While for her Manifestation 3, the truth is very useful, but in most cases, it's hard to exceed the limit. Because every time we face again enemy that have high mobility, like to stay away from you, or even have a small hitbox, it will make us very difficult to accumulate the mercy point, let alone to exceed the limit. And knowing that the higher the mercy point, the faster the mercy point will reduce over time. So it will also make us even difficult to accumulate that height. So that's why her Manifestation 3 is on the medium priority. While for Manifestation 4, it can increase her fire rate even further, where it can be quite useful, but it only can give you a small chance for her because even though she have a very high fire rate, her shotgun ammunition will become the hindrance for you. While for the 5th manifestation, it can give you additional elemental damage buff. This one is very useful even though it's really hard to trigger because you will need to accumulate your mercy point until you exceed its limit. And for the second one is Lifer Wild Hunt. Lifer Wild Hunt manifestation 1 is very necessary because if you use Frost elemental weapon, you can recharge her standard skill ammunition in order to prolong her standard skill duration. And you can maximize the recharge by shooting at the enemy weak spot with your Frost elemental weapon. While for her manifestation 2 is also useful in order to increase her standard skill final damage by 25%. And while for her manifestation 3 is also have a high priority because it can prolong her standard skill duration even further. And if you manage to reach her manifestation 5 that also have the ability to prolong her standard skill duration, you can see that her standard skill duration will become twice time more longer than before manifestation 3. So after shooting all of your ammunition while recharging her skill, you will always still have time to reload your gun and start shooting again in order to prolong your standard skill duration. While for her manifestation 4 is quite useful because it can increase your standard skill damage even further. So almost all of Lifer Wild Hunt manifestation are very useful in order to increase her damage. But for manifestation 1, 3 and 5 have the highest priority for her. And the next one is Ya Winter Salties. Ya Winter Salties manifestation 1 have the highest priority among them all because it can become very game changer for her in order to make her ultimate skill having more ammo. While for her manifestation 2 is also very useful for her because her standard skill cooldown will become very fast, that the one hinder you from reloading in her ultimate state is no longer from the standard skill cooldown, but instead you will run out of standard skill energy in order to use the tactical reload in her ultimate state. While for her manifestation 3 is very useless for her because it's only make you more easier to reuse her ultimate skill. After you manage to reach her ultimate state, you will never want to exceed that ultimate state again by doing every effort in order to maintain the ultimate state. Unless in a non-boss stage like in mini-event or underground purge where you need to change your character to clean up mobs, this one can be very useful. Like for example, when you have a full ammo in your ultimate state and you change your character, you can regain about 75 ultimate energy from that. And if you are accidentally pressing the normal reload button when you are in the ultimate state with 4 remaining ammo, you can regain about 60 ultimate energy. So all you need is to do some few shots and then you will be able to reuse her ultimate skill again. While for her manifestation 4 is quite useful because it can reduce your standard skill cooldown in normal state by 1 second, from 9 seconds to 8 seconds. That means your logistic talent, instead of getting skill haste, you can get standard skill energy recovery instead. While for her manifestation 5, that one is very useful because it can increase her final damage in her ultimate state by 10%, as long as you manage to maintain 5 of her ammunition availability in her ultimate state. And in order to do this, it's very easy because you already activate your manifestation 2 skill. And for Prithahas, her manifestation 1 is the most useful one for her because it can prolong her ultimate skill duration by consuming more ultimate skill energy. So that means you can increase her ultimate skill final damage even more as long as you have a ultimate skill energy availability. While for her second manifestation is not really that useful because it only gives her a defensive buff, but the most important buff from her second manifestation is that the way it can make her immune to crowd control debuff. So no enemy can interrupt or cancel her action when she is spraying her ultimate skill. And the next one is her manifestation 3. The third is not really that helpful. It can prolong the ultimate skill duration if you spraying it at the burning target. And the most easiest way to trigger that is that you throw her standard skill first to burn the enemy and at the same time you use her ultimate skill. So you can start spraying her ultimate skill while the target are burned. In this case, you can regain some ultimate skill to prolong her ultimate skill duration. Or you can even doing a masochist move because we know that her manifestation 2 can trigger the fire guard protection. And if any enemy attacking you when you still have your fire guard protection, any nearby enemy will get burned by the fire guard protection for 5 seconds. So all you need is to use your ultimate skill as near as possible to the target and let the target hit you. So besides you use your standard skill to burn the target, you also let the target to hit you in order to prolong the burn debuff duration on the enemy. So you can gain even more ultimate energy as long as the enemy is on fire. Well, that is the masochist way to use her ultimate skill, just don't try this at home. And for her Manifestation 5 is very useless because it only enhances your defensive or survival ability, where you can easily increase her survival ability if you have a shielded operative like Iris. Because Iris support skill, her shield can even manage to survive an attack from a difficulty 5 boss. While for her Manifestation 4 is more useful than her Manifestation 5 because her Manifestation 4 can increase her ultimate skill damage even further. So the last one is Maran Swift. Maran Swift Manifestation 1 is very game changer for her. It can make her more easier to use because the way it can reset the aim shot mark or fracture feather mark duration, so every time you use your standard skill shot can always hit the same spot as your first aim shot hit. So all you need is to aim shot once at the enemy weak spot, and then you can repeatedly using your skill and hip shot at the enemy, but all of your shot from your skill and hip shot will still land on the same spot as your first aim shot hit, as long as your fracture feather marks remain. Without this Manifestation 1, you will need to reattach the fracture feather marks every time its duration runs out. So that means you will need more frequently to do the aim shot at the enemy weak spot, so your attack speed will drop and that will lead to decreasing your sustained DPS. For Maran Swift Manifestation 2, that one is also very useful because it can increase your hip shot ballistic damage by 25% if your hit shot manages to hit the same spot as your standard skill hit. And you doesn't need to concern about your hip shot might miss because the aimbot will take care of that, unless the enemy start dancing and blocking the bullet trajectory with the other part of their body. For Maran Swift Manifestation 3 is also very useful because it can decrease her standard skill cooldown to 4 seconds, so there will be more standard skill charge for you to use. That means it's also more aimbot skill for you to use. Manifestation 4 is also important for her, the way you can increase her standard skill damage because she only can deal decent damage, so everything that can buff her damage is very necessary for her. And the last one, her Manifestation 5 is very useless for her. This one can be useful for her to clearing mobs, but it won't help you when you're fighting against boss. So if you already reached Manifestation 4, then you can stop investing on her Manifestation, unless you got her because of bad luck on gacha and get her duped, so her Manifestation 5 will get built by itself. So that's all about the explanation between each manifestation. So from here you can know that, for example, if your Yao Winter Salties already reached Manifestation 2, that means you can stop investing on her Manifestation 3. Instead of investing on her, you can start investing on who still have a high priority, like for example, maybe your Fny Cornet still in Manifestation 0, so investing on Fny Cornet Manifestation 1 is more valuable than investing on Yao Winter Salties Manifestation 3. But doesn't Yao Winter Salties Manifestation 4 and 5 is useful for her? How can we reach that if we didn't invest on her Manifestation 3? Well, once again, sometimes if we are unlucky in our gacha, her duplicate might come out by itself. Like for example, my Yao Winter Salties already reached her Manifestation 3 because she spammed my pool in the Momochiiii Shadows banner, so I can start investing on her again. But what about each of our operator manifestation position are on the very high priority at the same time? Then you can just start investing from your most favorite operative or the strongest operative you currently build. Because what I think is, all of them have their unique way and have their own strongest point. As long as you build them and use them well, all of them can perform very well on the field. In case you are wondering where I get this operative DPS number, I got this number by using DPS Calculator from the Yggdrasil Research Department that made by Penguin. You can try to use this DPS calculator by yourself. The link is on my video's description. In this DPS calculator, you can try to combine by yourself which operator using which gun and which logistic squad, and you can start compare their DPS output from the calculation by yourself. And if you want to know more opinions about the character tier list, you can try to visit .gg website that contains many guides for certain games, including the Snowbreak Containment Zone. In here you can also see the opinions by Vicyush about the operative tier list and their explanation. The link to the website is also in my video's description. I think that's all for my videos. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Cheers.